To protect and to serve. That is the motto of law enforcement.
So you might wonder why a police officer with a pattern of problems is still on the job. Officer Kimberly Sanders is still drawing a paycheck paid by taxpayers, despite being charged with driving under the influence of prescription drugs this past September. It was not her first run-in, not even her second, but her third.
When News 12's Laura Warren started looking into Officer Sanders' past, we wondered not only why Sanders is still on the job, but also how she keeps getting jobs in law enforcement.
And Meredith, what News 12 uncovered in our investigation might surprise you, because it surprised us. A dangerous trend that spanned years and multiple law enforcement agencies. This twisted stick of metal is all that's left of a stop sign after police in Hephzibah say Officer Kimberly Sanders crashed into it. A witness called the chief after she tried to drive away.
So they're backing up, trying to leave now. So I said, well, give me a description. I put the description out over the radio.
His officer pulled the car over 2 blocks away, shocked at who was in the driver's seat.
She called me and her words were, "You're not going to believe who this is."
It was the second wreck that day for Sanders, who'd been in a crash a block away 2 hours earlier.
I looked around to my left and she was coming right at me. And I'm like, oh my God, I just closed my eyes. And she hit me and spun my car around twice.
Witnesses and the chief say Sanders ran a red light at the busy intersection of Windsor Spring Road and Highway 88.
I talked to her, the other officer talked to her, and everything seemed normal.
But 2 hours later, after hitting the stop sign, the chief says Sanders was not the same.
I saw her, and there was an obvious difference between the first wreck and the second wreck in her behavior and her demeanor and everything.
After a breathalyzer test, the chief ruled out alcohol, charging Sanders with driving under the influence of prescription drugs. And the Waynesboro officer was booked for DUI drug charges, leaving the scene of an accident, and failing to maintain lane. Officer Sanders has been reassigned to desk duty at Waynesboro's police department, waiting for her day in court.
I didn't know until you just told me that she still had a job, because I would feel that she would have been, like I say, suspended, if nothing else, till further to the investigation is completed.
A News 12 investigation found this is not the first run-in for Sanders and prescription drugs. When she applied to the Waynesboro PD this past May, a background check revealed a few concerns, including a charge in Columbia County for 2 counts of felony attempt to obtain dangerous drugs by fraud from 1999. 6 years later, that charge was dismissed. And in 2010, Sanders was hired by Richmond County Sheriff's Office to work in the jail. Their personnel records reveal Sanders was reprimanded for sleeping on the job. A lieutenant stated he called her several times trying to wake her, but it was only after he shook Sanders by the shoulders that she awoke, but was disoriented. She was suspended 2 days without pay. 4 months later, Sanders was found to be disoriented with slurred speech and unsteady on her feet. A drug recognition expert gave a statement that Sanders' appearance was consistent with someone under the influence of depressant medication. At first, Sanders denies taking any prescription drugs, then admits to taking a muscle relaxer. She was fired the following week. 2 years pass and Sanders is hired again as an officer, this time by Georgia Regents University. A previous employer told GRU they would not hire her back and advised GRU not to. But GRU did hire her, only to fire her 11 days later. Despite Sanders' well-documented pattern of problems, which was all available to the Waynesboro Police Department, the chief gave Sanders a job.
I found that there's no person, me, you, or anyone else, that someone at some point in our life hasn't taken a chance with us. And it's important that we do that.
Waynesboro Police Chief Augustus Palmer would not comment on Sanders, only his overall hiring process.
To give you an example, this is a current application, and it's quite thick as you can see. And this is just a basic background investigation.
And the chief says background checks for potential employees include a driving history over the past 7 years. So News 12 checked Kimberly Sanders' driving record too. Besides those 2 accidents in September, going back 7 years, News 12 also found Sanders was ticketed for running a stop sign, going 81 in a 55, and passing in a no-pass zone. She's been in a few accidents too. She ran off the road and hit a tree after she said she saw a deer, and ran another stop sign, crashing into the back of a car. Hephzibah's police chief remembers that one.
She didn't stop at the stop sign. She basically ran right through it and plowed into the back of her before she even cleared the intersection.
Do y'all see something like that often, or is that more of an unusual case?
That's unusual.
And 6 years ago, Sanders hit and killed a man along Golfspur Road in Burke County. The Georgia State Patrol says he was in the middle of the road when Sanders hit him.
The accident report says the posted speed limit was 45. In the report, the trooper says the man's body ended up 198 feet from where he was hit. That's 66 yards, the length of this pass, plus another 10 yards. The report says the man didn't see the car and was at fault. Officer Sanders wasn't charged with anything.
No matter how tight a process you have, ultimately the decision lies with the chief of police. I weigh the applicants, and if I think they're salvageable, if I think they're trainable, I'm willing to take a chance with them.
I called Waynesboro police officer Kimberly Sanders several times but have not received any comment from her. Meanwhile, Sanders is scheduled to be in court later this month. Her original court date has been pushed back by the Hephzibah Police Department because they're still waiting on toxicology results from her most recent accident in September.
So, Laura, as for that upcoming court date,
We will absolutely be there and continue to follow this story.
please do. Thank you, Laura.